Pharma Ventures, experts in deals and alliances.
Hello and welcome to Pharma Television News Review here at Anglo Nordic in London in 2013. On this show, I have Clare Wareing, who is the Chief Scientific Officer at Ockham Oncology. Welcome.
Thank you.
Clare, we're going to talk about Ockham Oncology, but you were actually a founder of a company that is now part of Ockham, which was called Nexus Oncology.
Correct.
As a founder of that, could you just tell us a little bit about the origins of Nexus itself and where you were positioned in the market?
Sure. So Nexus Oncology started as a consultancy company, basically advising biotechs who were taking molecules from the preclinical side of research into clinical development. So we basically help the companies design the trials, make connections with the oncologists in Europe who would be running the trials, and then basically setting up the trials and the infrastructure around those trials. And from there, the company moved into being more of a contract research organisation. So we continued to do the consultancy piece, but we actually evolved the company into a fully fledged contract research organisation.
But obviously specialised.
Completely specialised in oncology. So my background is oncology. I'm a PhD biochemist. I've always worked in oncology. It's my passion.
Right.
And so having been in drug development since the late 80s, I have worked on a number of different oncology drug development programs that have led to the successful approval of new cancer treatments. And so in moving into the consultancy side of the business in the mid to late 90s, I brought with me all the experience I had had over that period of time. And we really wanted to help the smaller biotech companies who maybe didn't have the big budgets that the pharma companies had, but who had very exciting molecules or approaches to cancer treatment. And I really wanted to help them, move into the clinical side of things and really add value to the programs, so that they could then hopefully, in the fullness of time, commercialize any product that showed it was providing benefit for patients. Okay.
So obviously, at that time with Nexus, were you operating globally? Because now you're part of Ockham. Yeah. You're acquired by Ockham.
Yeah.
You are now Ockham Oncology.
Sure.
So what's the difference between Nexus and Ockham? What was the benefit in that acquisition?
Okay. Well, just to backtrack a little bit, in developing Nexus Oncology in about 2003, 2004, we took the decision to internationalize the company, and we set up operations in different European countries. So we started with France, we moved into Switzerland, we added operations in a growing number of European countries. Okay. In 2005, we set up a US operation, and it was quite hard moving into having been traditionally a European business and had successfully, developed our footprint in Europe. To then move into the US was a whole different market for us. So it wasn't like we could just say, well, look, we've been doing great work over here in Europe, go to the US and say to people, come and work with us. We had to really start organically again in the US and build, and it took some time. And meanwhile, Ockham Oncology had been developing their footprint in the US and growing their operations in the US, but hadn't actually focused so much on Europe. So by bringing in January 2012, Ockham Oncology acquired Nexus Oncology. So we became part of a bigger company. And in doing that, we globalized more successfully. Right. And we also gained access to additional functional areas such as biometrics and pharmacovigilance. So it really enabled us to grow much, much quicker than had we stayed independent and, done that organic growth, bringing in different functional areas, ramping up in the US, which would have taken a lot more time. And also, we were at the point where we needed to think about taking on outside investment to grow, and didn't really want to do that. So actually being acquired by a company that had both deeper pockets and larger resources it made a lot of sense for us to do that.
So it made it easier to cross the pond, as they say.
For sure, it did.
So where are we now? So with the enlarged organisation, as you described, with the operations both in Europe and US. So what's the way forward now for Ockham Oncology?
Well, now we have that critical mass, and the fact that we are all staying focused in oncology means that we're very well positioned to start taking on larger projects.
Okay.
So historically, we have come from the early phases of oncology drug development, so the phase 1, phase 2. As molecules move through development, once you have some proof of concept data in the earlier stages, and molecules and therapeutic approaches move into phase 3, you need a bigger critical mass, you need a global footprint, and we have that. So we're now in a position where we can actually look forward to more sustained growth, and growth in a quicker way.
Right.
So we will still continue to focus on the phase 1s and the phase 2s, because for me, that's where it all starts, and it's important that we add the value for companies at that end of things.
It's a critical point, obviously.
Totally. We have to generate the proof of concept, but then we also have to be able to support larger trials, because it's ultimately the phase 3 trials that generate the data that support the regulatory approvals.
Right.
So really we can do it all now. It's kind of a soup to nuts approach, I think the term is.
Well, of course, one of the big issues for biotech companies when they're getting to proof of concept is that they have the right clinical package to convince pharma to do the deal,
for sure.
ultimately.
Yeah.
But I suppose that leads us on to another question, really, as a person who observes the outsourcing activity that's going on, and particularly the development, the clinical development pipeline. If you were to look at the clinical pipeline for oncology products and the behaviours of companies towards outsourcing, but also where are we in terms of that? What's your view as a person who's obviously well embedded in the activities here?
Well, I think, over the last 20 years there's been a complete growth in the outsourcing market. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, there was very little outsourcing activity by pharma and biotech, but I would say now we're in an era where, a very high percentage of clinical development is outsourced. That's set to continue. Oncology continues to be, the biggest area for drug development. If you look at all the molecules, both at preclinical and clinical, oncology is the number one area. It's the biggest unmet medical need. So the growth in the outsourcing market will continue. You couple that with the growth in the oncology drug development side of things. I see a real potential for growth.
Right. Well, I suppose part of the things that have changed is in some sense the market has changed, because what you could take through to clinical trials maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you can't take through anymore, because you've got the reimbursement issues and so forth.
Yeah, for sure.
So what is the shape of clinical trials now as they were, say, 10, 20 years ago?
Well, I think we're moving into the area of personalised medicine. I mean, we're already there. We have a number of molecules in the oncology area that have been approved in recent years that target specific patient populations who carry a specific mutation, and we have the tests now to define which of those patients carry the mutation and therefore stand the chance of the best therapeutic benefit with the molecule. So I think we're moving into an era where, we have smaller trials but more defined patient populations in oncology. My own personal view is that we need to be stricter at the phase 1 and phase 2 end of things. We look at the failure rate in phase 3 in oncology, and I mean it's the same in other therapeutic areas, but
it's too high.
It's too high. It's way too high. The attrition rate in oncology and the failure at phase 3 is way too high. We should be smart enough today to be able to predict from the phase 1 and the phase 2 data which molecules to take forward. And I think as an industry we need to focus our resources, our financial resources and our academic and intellectual resources on those molecules which have the highest chance of surviving and being efficacious in phase 3. So I think there is a need for our industry to do more cleverly designed phase 1 trials, more focused phase 1 and phase 2 trials where we are defining the patient population earlier, and stricter about what goes through into phase 3. So I think that would help our industry enormously to be more efficient.
Clare Wareing, thank you very much indeed for coming on the show.
Thank you.